Hi, book club members. I'm Jen.
And I'm Carrie.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crag. This is episode number 89, and our book is Harrowmaster by Mike Brooks. It tells the story of Solomon Akura and his Shakespearean in magnitude rise to power within the Alpha Legion. We posted several questions on our website, WH40kbookclub.com, and we encourage participation in our conversations via YouTube, our site, or Encrypted Vox channel. Spoiler warning. If you have not yet read this book, definitely check it out before listening to this episode, as we'll be discussing the book from start to finish in great detail. With that, let's dive in. As always, Carrie, did you like the book?
No.
So go down this little thought experiment with me, if you will. Do. If I look at this book as a work of nonfiction, and I don't mean like this is true events. This is not Ken Burns's Alpha Legion. But if I look at it as more of like a thesis statement or like a thought experiment on the Alpha Legion, I find it interesting. You know,
like
that
a thesis statement as in like where the Alpha Legion is in present time?
Yeah, like I almost feel like the entirety of part 1 was kind of, I felt as though I was having a conversation with Mike Brooks. And that made it somewhat interesting because all of the thoughts that I've ever had about, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about, one of the reasons I like Mike Brooks is that I feel as though he's a true fan of the 40k universe. And oh yeah, he's a writer for the 40k. Yeah, I know. But I like the number of references he makes to other works. And he's clearly somewhat steeped in the meme culture. So, and just the fandom of the Alpha Legion. So I kind of felt like I was having a conversation with him with like all of these ideas that I had in my head, or like, you know, things that I've seen online, like good, bad, and different, really get addressed and laid out in part 1. So for that, I was like, as far as this goes, like this is actually very interesting. Parts 2 and 3 kind of lost me a little bit.
See, my thing with part 1, I felt like that was too much of a lean into like modern day discourse, where I just felt like it was just like, did you catch that reference? Did you catch that reference we made with Alpha Legion everyone talks about? Yeah, dude, you smacked us over the head with it about like how she killed her husband. So,
wait, did she kill her husband?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, it's not to say that there was like some really interesting insights into, I guess interesting insights, but it's more of, I guess we could say, if we're going to say this was like a conversation with Mike Brooks, I guess we could say that perhaps Solomon is a stand-in for Mike Brooks. Like this is his introspection into where the Alpha Legion is today, because he has not been with the Alpha Legion since day 1. He said he's only been around for a few hundred years. And so while it is interesting, and that one part that I found really insightful was about how he was talking about how the Alpha Legion's history is all rumors. Like, maybe Alpharius is dead, maybe Omegon is dead, maybe they actually warred against each other. They didn't believe their own, where they were going with one another. Maybe they really are. Maybe they're both separated somewhere. Maybe one is actually working in the shadows. Like, who knows? It is all rumors. And so that's why they're so fragmented. And I'm like, okay, I understand that. I totally get that. And if the primarchs really are gone, or they are doing things in hiding, which from some of the books or the short stories, I guess I should say, that I've read in the Horus Heresy. Went ahead and drink, everybody. I said Horus Heresy. The Horus Heresy, it is very possible that Alpharius and Omegon, one of them still alive, if not both, and they're off with a core group of trusted legionnaires. Because there was a whole short story, which I read it 3 times. I still don't understand why they killed half their people in this one plant. I still don't get it. I don't think I'm entirely meant to either. I because it's kind of the point of it. And so with that, I can see where the Legion would be completely fractured. Plus, you also have like, that one meme of like, bruh, I forgot which side I was on. Totally happening. So like with that insight, okay, yes, okay, if I take that into account, then that makes sense why the Alpha Legion is so fractured and so kind of disparate. But at the same time, isn't that why most of the legions are so disparate? Like, because they don't have their primarchs anymore. They feel like things have lost their way. They've lost all the history. We got new people, and there's one thing that we really saw in Lords of Silence was that you had the old guard who had been there since the heresy, who was going to follow Mortarion to the end of days because they were with him on Barbarous, and you had these newcomers who are just like, why the fuck are we listening to any of these people? Like, we should just go out there and just do our own thing. So
I think that was actually my favorite revelation from this book, or discussion. I shouldn't say revelation, but more discussion. And this was the part where I was like, oh, this kind of is a thesis statement here. Is that, so, especially within the fandom, but in some of the stories that we've read too, it's always kind of presented that the Alpha Legion has their shit together still. The World Eaters and the Emperor's Children and a bunch of these other legions have all just kind of like certainly the Night Lords, right? Now everybody else can take their second shot. I mentioned the Night Lords. Certainly the Night Lords, and definitely my petulant man-children, the Iron Warriors, right? Like, it's always kind of been viewed that, yeah, but the Alpha Legion is still united. They still have a plan. And one of the things that really hit me really hard, and I could just like hug Mike Brooks for saying this, is where he talks about how he's like, yeah, the rest of the traitor legions, they went off into the warp to lick their wounds, and they haven't really done anything, and it's just this disparate group of little war bands that aren't united, but not like the Alpha Legion. And then he's like, but we've been in real space, we're all operating differently, and we haven't done shit in 10,000 years. And look, death by 1,000 cuts is 100% a thing. And we're kind of seeing that with the Imperium, and this book pretty much ends with, great, another little fire that Bob's gonna have to go and put out, right? But like, I did like, but not that he really called that out. That one's we'll get there in a second. But I did like, as you said, that they are disparate. You have all of these, and sometimes it was played for laughs, and it was very effective. Like when the faceless, when he's like, "I am Alpharius," and everybody's like, "No, you're not." To be fair, do you even know? But I did like the idea that, yeah, they have some people who are definitely leaning more towards the Core Knights, and they have some people who are a little friendly with the Nurgle people, and like they have all these different things, and even the guys who are doing just the subterfuge. Like, how many times have they like tripped over each other, and they're not even all unified, other than like one common goal of death to the Imperium and mess with the Imperium? But guess what? That's what all the traitor legions are basically doing. Like, I liked the idea where he basically calls out, we're really not that different than the other traitor legions. We don't even know where our Primarch is either.
Maybe he's dead, maybe he's not.
Yeah, maybe they're dead, maybe they're not, maybe like nobody's seen the Alpha and the Beta, but that doesn't mean anything. It's a big universe. So
if you read that. So the one thing I also enjoyed was that he mentioned the Unsung, which was, from Shroud of Night, and he also mentioned the Sons of Hydra, which was another book by Rob Sanders. And the funny thing about Sons of Hydra was that they were actually that war band was actually, they were still under the belief that everything Alpharius did was for the Emperor. So they were kind of going in that direction. So that's, always very interesting. And the Unsung, they just wanted to get off the damn planet.
They just wanted to get off that planet.
They wanted to get off the planet they were on. They wanted to get off the planet that the Emperor's children dumped them on. They just wanted to leave.
They just wanted to go.
Yeah.
I did like in this book in particular, they had that one warband where they were like, oh yeah, they're actually loyalists. And he's like, are they loyalists? Or do they just like to pretend that they're super sad? that they like to pretend that they're loyalists? Like, is it that they're truly loyalists, or do they just kind of like the tragedy of pretending like, oh, I can't believe we're doing this?
Well, I guess the other thing I did like, again, it was in the part one, is when Solomon talked about how, it's like, this is what happens when our legion is built on lies. Like, 100%. You guys can't trust one another.
Oh, none of them trust one another. None of them believe one another. None of them know which way is up or down.
Honestly, and that one short story I read from the Horus Heresy, but Alpharius deciding, you know what? Those MFers are going to have to go. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to trust anybody when you have your own legion working against you as well. And Alpharius and Omegon even talked about how they each had their own little secrets within secrets. So it, at least, they're obviously, they're set up to be a polar opposite and yet an equal to the Dark Angels, with this whole idea of secrets upon secrets. But at least with the Dark Angels, they're not out to kill one another over stuff. They eventually bring them into
War of Secrets says, what's up?
Well, that was Primaris. It's a little different.
Too soon, Carrie.
They have the goal of eventually bringing them into that inner circle, to kind of telling them about the Fallen, whereas the Alpha Legions is like, maybe there's Fallen, maybe there's not. We'll tell you this. We'll tell you this other thing. It's like the whole thing from Alice in Wonderland. One of us always tells the truth and one of us always lies. You never know who's doing what.
Yeah. Well, and I did like, so yes, on some hands it was a little heavy-handed that they're just like the Inquisition.
You think?
But despite that, I did like that whole, just as, we weep because of all the information and the history that the Inquisition has gotten rid of. And he basically says the same thing. He's like, yeah, we've forgotten so much. We have lost so much. We've left so much. It's one of the things that I've always said about the Ultramarines, right? You can see how with some of these loyalist legions, you can see how just over the years, you got a guy in charge who no, I don't think we should dictate. We should deviate from the Codex, right? And then his successor, oh no, we don't deviate from the Codex. And then his successor, we follow it word for word, right? You can see that evolution, and I feel like you can see that here with this band too, of we keep secrets. We don't tell anybody anything. We don't trust anybody. Oh yeah, no, we're going to take that to heart. And that was the part that I was like, yes, all of this is all these things that I've thought about. And again, some of it's fun, right? And he definitely had fun. I did love when Talava is don't even worry about this setback, because the Imperium will waste decades trying to figure out what they missed.
See, and that to me was that was like, okay, whatever.
It kind of was there too, but then I also was like, you know what? There is a benefit to being these guys, right? There is a benefit to being renowned for being Xanatos Gambit guys. But the problem is that when everything is part of the plan, is there a plan? Again, as you said, the meme, bruh. I forgot what side I was on. I felt like this book was, a lot of that was, they don't even really know.
Well, no, they have no idea. So in a way, it's kind of funny. It's just like, oh, okay, so, because we even did this with the second Dark Plague War, when we find out that it was the Alpha Legion, that killed everybody in that village for Frater Matthew, and it's like, okay, the Alpha Legion's there, if they're there for a reason. Were they? That's yeah. That's when this book kind of has maybe they weren't. Maybe they just happened to be there. They were trying to get some resources, So I appreciate Mike Brooks bringing that to attention. It's it's not all subterfuge all the time, but at the same time, I kind of don't like that he took that away from them.
I do and I don't, because I do like the idea that, yeah, you're not gonna, with the absence of your primarchs, you're not gonna keep everyone on board, right? And they're sort of
Well, no,
laissez-faire.
no, but I like the idea of these different war bands because I always knew that there were different war bands. It's because they're all like that. But I like the idea of these different war bands of the Alpha Legion all doing what they believed, what their primarchs wanted them to do. And I kind of like that whole thing so that they did have plans. But yet there were some who were like, no, we decided we want to be Cornites, or, you know, we're going to go this way, we're going to go that way. We're going to kind of deviate from what our primarch wanted, which was to maybe use the warp but not be part of it. But I also like the idea that, yes, they might have these war bands who maybe don't have a plan, but at the same time, I kind of like the idea that they were all doing what they believed that the Primarch wanted them to do, so they had that kind of a plan.
Right. I liked the idea that there were some that had kind of fallen from it. One of my favorite observations in this book, by the way, like the little side off observations that you made me think of, was when he's talking about how that one legionnaire is just like, well, this is why the changer is the best one to follow, and he's like, oh god. But then
Yeah.
he's thinking about it, and he's like, well, to be fair, at least the changer's minions won't kill you in like a frenzy,
Right.
right? Because they're bored. They won't spread a disease that accidentally kills your entire warband. And, you know, like the Slaanesh guys go without saying, you can't trust them for anything. I liked the idea that when faced of the four chaos gods, for these guys at least, the changer's probably the most preferable. But then he's like, but I've also seen people just melt into a pile of
Right.
flesh,
Yeah.
fanged maws. So, you know.
Yeah, I kind of laughed at that. I was like, well, you know, it's very easy to worship the changer ways when, like, no matter what happens, like, oh, it's all part of the plan. You always believe that you're God,
Right.
that you're doing stuff like a part of the plan. He's like, but then, you know, like you said, they suddenly develop all these mouths and
Oh my god. Well, and I did, you know, there were so many little things in here though that didn't pay off, I guess I would say. Um like little things that I was like, "Oh, go into that." Like when he talks about in the beginning, remember how does he bring all the war bands together? He says, "We will never outlie the Imperium." The Imperium, like,
right.
they are all much better liars than we are. So what we need to do is the truth. Well, that never really comes to fruition, right? And one of the other things I was thinking
So,
about,
I
we were
mean,
talking about,
it's even there on the back. It even talks about how, but Solomon is armed with a weapon the Imperium can't ignore the truth. What truth was he doing? I was expecting him to
right.
bring all these people, like, he's like, we all got to talk because shit, like, a loyalist Primarch is back, and that could be bad for all of us. I thought there's going to be some big grand plan to go in there, you know, and arm themselves with the truth, not go relic hunting like a frickin' blood angel.
Can we agree that as people, the Space Marines are oddly materialistic?
I think the ones with the original legions are.
Yeah, because like the Night Lords are, some of them are still looking for the crown, right? The Salamanders, the legend is that if they collect all of Vulcan's relics, he'll come back. Do I even need to address the Blood Angels?
Nope.
Um, like all of the fact that Karn, one of the reasons that Karn was even considered ruling is because he had Gorechild, right? Like they're in, and like when Robbie Bobby comes back and he's like, "Oh, you're sitting in the chair." Like, you know, it's just a chair, guys. They're oddly materialistic, maybe sentimental.
Sentimental is
Like,
probably a better way to put it.
but I'm with you, and we'll get into that here in a second because there's, it was a magical MacGuffin that I was not expecting. But one of the things, so I really
I
like
can't even say it
the,
was a MacGuffin.
we're going to talk more about that because I have so many thoughts to unpack on that. But one of the things that didn't get capitalized on that I thought was very interesting is that, so he has this whole vampire hunter D thing going on, right? Which because I'm a huge Vampire Hunter D fan. This was really important, and I really liked this. With his demon living in his hand, right? That he doesn't fully trust, but it does help him out a lot. When they first meet the
Rustbloods.
Zetas. When they first, I couldn't think of his name for a second. When they first meet him,
Oh, the metal phage. That's
right. When they first meet him, Solomon is like, "Oh my god, the demon in my hand is actually scared of this guy."
Mm-hmm.
Why though?
Yeah, never.
And that was like I was like, "Ooh, oh, okay. I guess we're not going to talk about that again." Let's talk a little bit about Solomon, though, because we've talked a lot about the Alpha Legion in general, which, this book is full with so many things about the Alpha Legion. What did you think of Solomon, like, as a leader, as a protagonist? Were you invested in his rise to power?
No, I wasn't invested in his rise to power because it was so obvious from the very beginning that's what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, of everybody there, yes, he's the best leader. He's definitely the most qualified leader out of everybody there. No, did I see him like trying to bring the Legion together? No, that was pretty. I mean, that's pretty admirable, and he had some good ideas. But at the same time, he went back. You know, for someone who kept saying that, we need to stop building our Legion on lies because of the Imperium. They're already beating us at it. He did plenty himself. Yeah, okay, so the metal phage like totally betrayed them and everything. But then he doubled down on it. And so it's like, okay, so did you mean any of that you said earlier? Well, obviously you didn't, because we never got to see whatever this truth was that you were going to go against the Imperium with. I think you were just trying to vie for power at this point.
I think so, yes. And I as you said, like, we knew he was going to end up being Harrowmaster by the end. I, like, other than being told, like, yes, he wants to unite the Legion, and you're right, that's a big deal. Like, the fact that he's like, we need to come together, we need to stop all of this ticky-tack stuff that we've been doing, we need to come together with one united vision, that is a big deal. And that he could bring people together is a very big deal. But he had all these little things that I was like, does that necessarily make you a good leader? Like, so one of the things that I really struggled with was Talava. I did not like Talava Dyne as a character. And I didn't really like Solomon as a character. I was, however, invested in the fact that they had this friendship. If you've listened to this podcast at all, you know that I have one of my themes that I really like is when we see strong friendships in this universe. And I think because it's so dark and terrible and human lives are very short, as much as I joke about giant soulless babies, I've always said that those two, like, they've just developed like this bond, right? What's the word I'm looking for? It's a non-sexual bond. It's just like they are two very good friends who have found each other. And I think Solomon and Talava had that same thing. And I do like to see that. I like that it's like, okay, yeah, this world is horrible and awful, but you're still somewhat human and you still do need companionship. Again, in a non-sexual manner. I didn't like either character, but I was invested in their friendship. But he allowed her to, like, they're going down in that drop pod and she's like, oh, we're just going to bamf out of here. That's not what I would call a good leader. Like, it comes to his advantage, right? Because everything she does is to his advantage because he's our main character in the Xanatos Gambit, the Legion. But, like, everything was like, oh, this actually works out for me. There were just so many little things that I was like, are you a good leader, though? Like, are you? I don't know. I don't think so. And I don't mean that as just the fact that he allows anybody to just be like, yep, yoink, taking you.
I think that speaks more to the fact how much he ultimately trusts her.
Yeah,
more than anything else. I mean, I kind of liked her just because she made me laugh every now and then. She's like, clean or dirty. That made me laugh every single time.
I had some really mixed feelings on her.
But then again,
I do always
now that I'm thinking about it, though, sorry to interrupt. That
no,
you know
please.
she was talking about the whole thing about the truth and lies, and she summons that demon out of their own legionnaires. It's like, dude, that wasn't cool.
So you took that right out of my mouth. Is basically where I was going with that next. Is that, and he says he kind of hand waves it away later, where he's like, yeah, I mean, basically those guys were already starting to toy with the powers, and she just capitalized on that. Um, but like, I don't know, like,
You know, it made me think of actually. One of my favorite lines in Die Hard is near the end where Holly Gennaro is talking to Alan Rickman. She's like, you know, for all of your speeches, you're nothing but a common thief. And that's kind of what I thought here. You know, for all your big speeches about truth and unity, you're using people with lies like you always have.
yeah. And you are like, yeah, the fact that she just kills all these people, all these legionnaires, and he's like, good work. I'm not saying that you have to be emotionally invested in all of your people.
But whatever happened to brotherhood?
Right?
Right? You can't see you want to reunite the Legion and then not do brotherhood. See, this is why these war bands and for the traitor legions are never going to like topple the the various chapters of the loyalist chapters, because they actually still believe in brotherhood.
And some authors use that to great effect, right? I did like that he was able to. The two characters in this book who I really liked were Halvar and Vakai. Really liked both of those characters.
Oh my god, Vakai was the best.
Don't even know if Halvar survives in the end. I'm gonna guess not.
Oh, I thought he did.
Well, he talks about how like he could feel his insides like coming out, and I was like, you can survive that actually.
You can walk that off. You're a legionnaire.
You're a legionnaire. Walk it off. Shake it off. Come
Surely
on.
you got an apothecary
Send
around there somewhere.
in. Right. Those are my two favorite characters, and but I did like how even they don't like Solomon, but they recognize that he's pretty. You know,
He's better than the metal phage.
That guy just creepy.
Yeah.
All I could think of though when they reveal his trait, all I could think about was Firefly. Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal. Yeah, like you messed up.
You trusted us.
him.
Yeah.
He was not.
Yeah. Like, gosh, like that whole thing on Ravener. The first Ravener book. Wait, these shady people betrayed us? Yeah. Like, okay. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So let's transition to our loyalist side for a second here and talk about Heart and Carnus.
Do I have to?
Huh?
Do I have to? Fine. All right.
Were they good inquisitor?
No.
They a good inquisitor or a bad inquisitor? And did they add to the overall plot?
No.
I'm gonna actually have to agree with you on this one.
They
There
felt
were
like
a couple
Indiana
things in
Jones.
There was one scene in this book that I loved, and it was very brief, and it was just because I did like that they acknowledged this, right? That when they're on board the ship and they're kind of arguing, and then they both pull back, right? Despite the fact that they don't like each other, they both are kind of like, the kids cannot see mommy and daddy
Right.
fighting. And he talked about how he's like, yeah, we are like the most feared institution in the Imperium. We cannot be seen to be bickering amongst ourselves. That really hit me hard. I was like, oh, damn, that is a good point. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden you start thinking about all the poor baseline humans who are in the room with these two people, right? Where it's like, oh, Jesus,
Right.
like, what do you even say? I really liked that, and I actually liked Carnus because Carnus called a spade a spade. Heart
She was a
is
hypocrite.
no better. than
Hypocrite.
Critman.
She was such a hypocrite.
Oh my God, she was. But I do like when she's like, "You're no better than Critman," and he's like, "Take that back."
Yeah, well, Okay,
It's
fine.
true
She's
though.
gonna call us. I don't know who that is, but she's gonna call a spade a spade. You got a fucking pyrokine right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I
Well,
actually,
but
actually,
again,
I loved when Tula was like, "If she's sanctioned, I'm Acadian."
yeah. I have a lot of questions about that one too. Um, no, you're totally right. Where she's like, well, I mean, like obviously my bodyguard's allowed to be really not only a powerful psyker, a pyrokine. Like, ooh, that's yeah. That's a bad one. Like that's very volatile and unstable. Um, but and she knows it too. It's not like she's like, "Oh, wait, what?" Um, especially cuz she's a psyker
Mm-hmm.
of pretty strong, but again, I mean, much like Kripman, he we always say this right about the Inquisition. They are the kings of the Pyrrhic victory. I did like how Hart, like but not like, obviously. Um, I liked how he kind of rationalized everything, right? Like, well, yes, I intentionally planted something, a lure for the Alpha Legion, and we're going to burn half the subsector and sacrifice it to the Alpha Legion, but we're going to destroy the Alpha Legion. And then later, we are going to deal a very heavy blow to the Alpha Legion. Well, you know what? I think we got this one really powerful warlord. Bruh. Bruh.
Not like she had any better ideas. Like she would have sacrificed the whole subsector the same way. She was just mad that he was using an artifact that she, her puritanical ways wouldn't let her use.
Yeah.
On that part,
But I
I
mean,
was
she
like,
is
okay, now you're just splitting hairs just to be a bitch.
pretty much. Like, but again, it's all part of that Inquisition, right? Well, I mean, like, obviously my plans are good and I have the true path. You're a heretic, but it's just because you haven't fallen in line with me.
Yeah.
Again, that infighting, right, that we've always seen between these people. When you have true power unchecked, makes it real hard to work with others, doesn't it? But I got to be honest and say, other than to point out that look, the Alpha Legion and the Inquisition, neither of them can get their shit together because they're both so sneaky and they tell a lot of lies. Um, other than that, like I don't know that Karnas really adds much to the plot.
Harness added
Y-
nothing. You
You
could
could probably
argue
move her.
that blanked on his heart, that heart was needed just because of he was a plant, his life ward was another plant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe, but either way, you guys still like totally let a whole legion of or whole chapter or maybe a squad or so of Primaris Silver Templars die because you guys couldn't get a proper plan together.
Yeah. Again, the the stakes are too high, much like the rent. Um, you cannot. You again, like just the amount of waste that these people go through, right? Like I just talked about how awful I thought it was that Talava basically sacrifices all of those warriors so that she can bring out some bloodletters. But on the other hand, that's like a drop in the bucket compared to what these two guys. And so going back what to what Solomon was saying in the very beginning of the book, like you cannot out treachery these people. You just can't. Like this guy was willing to sacrifice like at least half. But I think you're absolutely right. I think like this planet, right, that they end up on and they convert the governor over, right, to becoming a traitor.
Well, the governor's screwed either way. I think he
You
just.
think Karnas wouldn't exterminatus that planet just to make a point?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Just to send a message to
It
the
didn't matter
subsector?
that he was tricked and everything. They tried to prove it. Oh, nope, you know what? You could be tainted, so yep, sorry.
Yeah.
At least the Alpha Legion was like, yeah, you guys are probably screwed when the Imperium like decides to like come and check this out. But in the meantime, you guys can all live, and as long as like you help us out, you look the other way with stuff, like we're not gonna mess with you guys, which is more what the Imperium can say, which like, okay, that's true. And honestly, if you're going to make a deal with the Traitor Legion, the Alpha Legion's not a bad one to make it with, because they're not going to, you know, rape, burn, and pillage and do human sacrifices and all that stuff.
You know what? That is actually true. Like, if you had to have a Traitor Legion show up on your homeworld, Alpha Legion's probably the best. Nobody's going to get bored and go, like, they're not going to skin all of your leadership alive just to send a message.
Or for
they're not going to
funsies.
rape and pillage or melt people down to make drugs. They're not going to make giant... They're not going to stop and, you know, until they have giant effigies of skulls.
Right.
And let's be real, nobody wants the Death Guard showing up on their planet. Yuck.
No, even then, like, when the Death Guard shows up, yeah, we just have to exterminatus, because the only way to stop them is to kill it with fire.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying, like, for the people, like, if you have to have a Traitor Legion show up, yeah, this is probably the best one.
Because at least they're willing to bargain.
They're willing to bargain. They're willing to be merciful. All they want is just your stuff. That's all they want is your stuff. This is stuff you were going to give to the Imperium anyways. So 6 and 1/2 dozen the other, right?
Right.
Were you surprised by yours reveal? How do you feel? How do you feel? Talk to me about your.
Alas, poor Yorick, I hardly knew ye. I was surprised. I did not see that coming. But when it happened, I'm like, okay.
You too. Well, yeah, I'm kind of there with you too, because they had mentioned a few times that how much they missed him, right? And like, he was such a loss to them. That was such a blow. I loved the description where he talks about how one moment he's standing in front of a furious Crimson Consul, and the next moment it's an Alpha Legionnaire who's just like, oh, hey, Solomon. I liked that. I did feel like it was a little too convenient. Like, when he reveals himself to be a plant, I was like, of course he is. But of course.
Well, you know, it's like when you find out that Heart was originally a plant. And it was like, okay, so that's the source. Okay, all right, it makes total sense now. It makes even more sense why he wouldn't tell Karnas who the source was.
Right. Well, and that they both think they're playing each other, but one of them is decidedly better at the game than the other person is.
Right. But, you know, so you find that out, and he's like, you know, aha, I have this life ward. Solomon's like, aha, he's actually a plant. I kind of remind me of that one South Park. It was, you know, it's like, aha, I was expecting you were going to do this, so therefore I did this. Aha, I expected that you expected I was going to do this, so I did this. It's like, dang it. They're like, yeah. Trying to out aha one another. And
basically,
okay.
Yes. It reminded me more of that scene in Bill and Ted. What if we knew that we were going to need this, so we went back in time and we recorded a message? Or what if we went back in time and we got the car keys? Like, it reminded me more of like that, of like, okay, well, now I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And it did remind me a little bit of that scene in Rites and Passage, my favorite one, when the Inquisitor's like, oh, would I have planted somebody in your retinue just to keep an eye on you? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would have. I do always like when a sneaky person figures out that somebody is much better at this game than they are.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of my favorite reveals. So I did like that when he's basically like, yeah, this is my boy. But I guess I wasn't that surprised. Yeah, I was kind of like you. I was like, oh, of course. I didn't really have any, like, I guess I would have expected to have like stronger emotions about it. And I really didn't.
No, I mean, it was like, okay, congratulations, you guys have now measured your penises, and Solomon has won this contest this time. Okay.
Right.
He still got away.
All right. Let's talk about the MacGuffin.
It's
It is
not
the
a
item.
MacGuffin. I can't even call it a MacGuffin.
Well, and the only reason I'm going to call it a MacGuffin is because what is one of my biggest complaints about magical MacGuffin plots? Oftentimes, the item reveal the thing that everyone is going after. We all just kind of, you get to it and you go, oh. Like, one of the books in the 40k universe that actually did the MacGuffin very well was that Cal Jericho book by Josh Reynolds. When what on earth could somebody have that would be worth all of this? Oh, that is very much worth all of this, right? The spear of Alpharius. Were we missing this really?
So, all right. I have to back up here because my biggest complaint, I think, about this entire book was that I felt like it was constant dropping of a story. Like,
All right, fair.
just
I'm with you there. I feel this entirely.
okay. So we're on the Unseen, and the Crimson Consuls are about to ram the ship, and then we don't hear anything about it. And then the next thing we know is like, oh hey, the Crimson Consuls were actually disguised at with statues and everything, and there was that big reveal. No, Crimson Consuls, the Silver Templars. So there was
it actually got paid off. Like the one where they were like, oh, there's borders on the ship. The next chapter is, oh, those borders were easy to deal with. Anyways,
yeah. Well, there was like several
the fact
chapters.
that he paid off the statues, I was actually very excited about, because as soon as he was like, wait a minute, I was like, oh, we're gonna jump forward here. I agree with you on that, especially in parts 1 and 2 entirely. They would be like, oh, and this is happening, and then the next chapter would be like, no big deal.
Well, it just they were getting rammed, and then suddenly the Silver Templars are here, and it's like, oh hey, did you have any problem with those borders? Nah, there's no big deal. It's like, what? So we had, I mean, that's just one example, because there were the other examples, like he's got this spear. He about just barely escaped with his life from Hart, and then he's disguised as somebody else in this guy's retinue. Like, no.
And the Diabolicus Secundus had time to make reconstruct the spear out of this. Like, do you guys have a replicator that I don't know about?
Yeah, it's just
no, I felt that entirely. And here's the problem. Okay, I want to go back to that boarding thing, because that thing really bothered me. It happened not once but twice. Because okay, I get it. Not every book has to be bolter porn. Totally get it. But Mike Brooks is very good at writing action. I direct your attention to Brutal Cunnin, if you don't believe me. And there were a few really good action sequences in this book. Again, it does not have to be bolter porn. But if you are going to tell me that we've been boarded, you got to deal with that. You don't just get to be like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. Or if you were going to tell me that this giant battle is looming, do not then jump 2 days later. But I have questions. I have questions. Like, can we go back? I actually kind of felt like either something got cut or left on the floor, or like they just. But I think this also goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where it was like, we're going to tell them the truth.
You know what this? You know what it reminded me of? This just dawned on me. I'm going ahead and get your drinks out. I'm about to bring out something else. BioShock Infinite. We're going to bring in these concepts and then drop it like a bad habit and not discuss it ever again.
You're 100% correct. And that's actually a really apt comparison, because similarly, right, there were all these like little, I feel as though we were going through a hallway and there were all these like doors that were just kind of open ajar. And you walk by and you have just enough time to be like, oh, that looks it. Oh, no, okay, we're not going in there. That looked really interesting, though. But it's because we're going somewhere else. Like, just close all the doors. Like that seemed interesting. I want to see what the borders look like. I really do. And like, and I will say, I know that this is probably setting this up for future reference. However, the whole sequence where they bring it to Mechanicus Bile, the Primaris, and he's cutting open the Primaris, and then that just gets dropped like a bad habit
Oh,
too.
right. Yeah, we have no idea what happened with that.
I mean, I'm guessing that they're just saying that, like, look, I'm guessing that Mike Brooks he planted the seed for, because if anybody is going to try to copy the Primaris, it's going to be the Alpha Legion. Let's be real. I feel like they planted that seed, but that had already been planted in the third Fabulous Bill book when Abaddon, remember Abaddon comes to Bill and is like, oh, they got something new. So now we have Mechanicus Bill and Fabulous Bill working on it. I don't know. Like that whole section, I was like, oh, okay. And his dishonor guard thing got a pretty big eye roll for me.
Yeah.
We've seen this before with Igori, and it was kind of weird there too. Not gonna lie. But that whole thing gets lost. So you have the Primaris.
I actually forgot about the Diabolicus Secundus. Until
but then they managed to rebuild the spear.
Yeah, until he brings him up in the end. It's like, you have it ready? Like, yes, sir. I'm like, where'd y'all come from? I thought you guys were on the unseen. Okay, sure. Fine.
Sure.
You know, I have no idea how Solomon got from where he was on that.
Back to the unseen and then back down to the
planet? No, when he was there with, what's his face? Hart, and now he's in disguise in Zetas's retinue. So, all right, sure. Like, no, I don't need you to, like, you know, walk, you know, hold my hand and walk me through step by step how we got there. But I would like a sensical sequence of events at the same time.
I'm with you entirely. Like, I was totally fine with him, like, the big reveal of him being in Zetas's retinue, but I was like...
But how did he get, like, it doesn't make any sense how you got there.
Or I need to have a better understanding of how much time has passed, because it seemed...
that too. Or that's, yeah.
It seemed like on a Saturday he was with Hart, and then on Sunday he was in Zetas's retinue.
No, it seemed to me like it was like Saturday morning he's with Hart, Saturday evening he's suddenly in disguise. It was like that fast.
And the Diabolicus Secundus managed to take the broken pieces of a blade and reforge it.
Which I guess means he had to get back to the unseen, right?
Yeah. He would have had to have. And here's the thing.
Well, then Vakai would know that he was alive, and he would have been like, "Sir, you're alive." So, all right, we got plot hole.
Exactly. I have questions. But going back to this friggin' spear, when it gets revealed that he has the pale spear, like, don't get me wrong, it's a pretty important weapon. And when he's describing like the black oily smoke coming out instead of blood, which then also kind of made it a little disingenuous. Then when he's like, who knows if it's real or not? Does it really matter if it's real or not? I'm gonna go ahead and guess it's real, because it's when you cut somebody, black oily smoke came out of them. Like, that implies that it is in fact the pale spear. But was this something they were looking for? Like,
we had no clue. So, like, Hart mentioned, he's like, I have an artifact that they want. Well, when they say, well, we got to go to this sector, and I was like, well, why do you guys have to go there? I don't understand. It wasn't until, like, they were looking for the artifact that they said they were looking for something in the first place. I'm like, I am so confused how we got to this point right now.
Okay, so that is one of those things. I will agree with you on that, because it would have been one thing, and again, this is it's part of the MacGuffin. Had he been from the beginning, we got to go get the MacGuffin. It only gets revealed, like, at the very end. He's like, oh, I mean, obviously this whole thing was about getting the MacGuffin. Was it? Because I thought it was just about getting resupplied and working up some more stuff for Bob, like that.
Right,
like,
and, you know, preparing to reveal whatever
important to you,
whatever truth that you were going to reveal, like, you know. And when the Inquisitors kept saying, "Oh, they're definitely coming after this artifact," I'm like, "Well, why? Why?"
Well, and that's it. Like, again, if this had been Vulcan, Oh, we have this item of Vulcans. Okay, makes sense. They're gonna go and get that. Had it been
Or
this, had it
Sanguinius's
been the
spear.
crown, had it been Conrad's crown, okay, all right, I'm on board with you guys.
Hmm.
Um,
How about Ferrus
if
Manus's eyes?
if it was Ferris's eyes, if it was, I mean, there's like six. If it was Gorechild, like there's all these
Right.
things that I would be like established. And actually, I guess Gorechild would have probably been on the same wavelength as the Pale Spear because, like, yes, the Pale Spear was a thing, but I was unaware that this was something that they were hunting for with such vehemence that he's like, okay, we gotta have that. Or
It
because
wasn't
that's
even
what they
that.
made it seem
Just
like. They
that they
didn't
were
make it seem like
that
oh,
they were looking for an artifact at all. Like Hart kept saying that they were that they were going to come and get this, but they never said they were on a hunt for a certain thing.
they never, it really hasn't been. And maybe there is. Somebody, please, if this is in a codex or in a short story or something, please definitely point me in the direction. I will happily go read that. But like, I was not aware that searching for the Spear of Longius, sorry, the Pale Spear, um, was a thing for the Alpha Legion. Like, and now that he has it, and this
I've
is another
read
thing when huh?
I've read every recent Alpha Legion short story, and I've read most of the Alpha Legion novels, at least the ones that I know about. That's never been a thing. So unless it's like a new thing from one of the updated codices, because I know they did just do an updated with the trader or something like that. But even if that's the case, then I mean I'm gonna throw the bullshit flag on this because I can't stand that. That's just
And
my
I think
that's my personal thing when they have something that's supposed to be
I
known
agree.
in the codex.
I totally agree on that. Like, we needed to have a little bit of color here. Um, the other thing is that, like, okay, so I think about the end of Lords of Silence, which I feel like at this point you should probably just take a drink because I reference that book often. Um,
I already referenced it too. So
excellent. Take a drink. Another. The shot count is up to 4. Um, they like at the end of that book, I understood why all of a sudden everybody rallies behind Vorks, right? Because everybody thought that he was kind of slow and that he wasn't really paying attention. And he had lost his edge, and then in the end, he's like, "Oh, by the way, I've totally still am very, very dangerous." And it made sense that everyone was like, "Okay, all right." This guy outplays another petty warlord and he has the spear, and so I couldn't tell if if he gets to declare himself king of shitfuck mountain because he is a really great leader and
he has the
everyone
conch.
recognized that, or if it's because he has the pale spear. What is it? Like, I could not tell what was the thing that pushed him over. Was it because even kind of, and again, the whole like, what, it's real, maybe it's not real. I mean, I have a lot of questions. It does open an interesting question of how did the Ordo Malleus come into possession of the Pale Spear? That's a valid question, and that could be a very interesting thing to discover. But let me ask you this: what comes next, and are you invested in it?
I don't know and I don't care.
I'm kind of there with you. Like when Evelyn Dark, which by the way, all I could think about was Damien Dark from the Arrow TV series and Damien Dark. So of course when she Evelyn Dark, I had to say it in a Bostonian accent the whole time. I was like, oh, it's Evelyn Dark. From Vorlise, I was like, oh, huh, interesting. And then pretty much put it aside. I think I was supposed to feel something there a little bit stronger. And again, maybe she's because the last book that we read about Vorlise would have been was it the first or the second Watchers of the Throne book? I think it's the first. Um, but that was the last time that we read about Vorlise, and I'm like, oh shoot, was she a minor character in there that I missed and I forgot about? Mayhaps. Let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I was with you. I was kind of like, interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I don't
yeah.
care what next wacky plan that Hart and Dark come up with to try to take down the Alpha Legion. Um, I don't care what Solomon is going to do, and that pains me because I like the Alpha Legion, but I think this is one of those cases where it's like, yes, I think I like sections of the Alpha Legion. Like again, the book Shroud of Night was very, very good. The Unsung were a fun little group. I like the Alpha Legion during the Heresy, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not particularly invested in this one, and I feel as though this is one of those books that if you like the Alpha Legion in 40k, you probably really enjoyed this book, and it makes you like the Alpha Legion even more. If you don't like the Alpha Legion, which I don't, I feel as though this book will pretty much make you not continue to not like the Alpha Legion. But unlike Luther, which the argument I made about Luther is that if you love the Dark Angels, you will get to the end of this book and you will love the Dark Angels. If you don't like the Dark Angels, you will get to this book and not like the Dark Angels, but you'll have fun either way. I did not feel that way about this book. And it really kills me because we know people who really enjoyed this book. Sorry, Panty Mouser. And Goodreads, people are really enjoying it. This one just missed the mark with me entirely.
Yeah. And from some of the little reviews that I read, they were saying that it was such a good lore book regarding the Alpha Legion, and maybe that's what everyone really, really liked. To me, it wasn't. There were some interesting insights, but it didn't tell me anything I didn't already know. So, except the only lore insight, I guess, for the modern day Alpha Legion that grabbed me was what I had said earlier in the podcast, that where they basically said that everything is based on rumors and they don't know, and they're just kind of adrift. They don't know this, they don't know that, they don't know what's real, they don't know what's not real, and this is just who they are. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I understand how you guys got there, but that just means I kind of don't like this Legion and where it is. So I guess I'm not a fan of the rudderless. I liked it better that that they were full of subterfuge and had plans, that they were still doing things for the Emperor, or even when they were doing things against the Imperium, at least they had a plan. The whole idea that they're like, oh, they've been rudderless this whole time and everything's have they had a plan? No, they haven't had a plan. It's all a lie. Well, that kills it for me. That actually kills my enjoyment of the Alpha Legion. So,
see, for me, it actually made me hate them a little, or just, I shouldn't say hate. I don't hate any of the Legions. Maybe not true. I don't like the Alpha Legion, and I did kind of like that it's like, yeah, no, it would be impossible to continue to have a plan, especially when you are leaderless. Like, you are absolutely leaderless. So that part I actually kind of liked, and that one didn't bother me, but I could totally understand why that would rub, if you're an Alpha Legion fan, like, that would rub you the wrong way. Totally understand that. I just, I felt like the first part of it really tackled some of the bullshit head on. Let's be real. And then the second and third parts of the book leaned into the bullshit.
Yeah.
It was a hard one for me. Well, it really was.
And
I'm glad we read it this year.
The second and third part, just everything we kind of talked about in the first part, we're just dropping. And I don't even know why.
Yeah, basically.
It didn't even follow what the back of the book said.
No.
Basic things. So.
I agree. And I don't know why. I don't know how that happened. Did this book go through revisions? Did it go through editing hell? Did
the guy who wrote the quote on the back of the book just read those first 2 chapters?
They just read part 1. They were just giving a summary of part 1.
I guess so.
I feel like there's a story with this book. It got edited. It got revised. The plan changed from the pitch. They only read the first part.
There may be, but in the end, it doesn't matter. because
True.
this is what we have. It's like, we heard so many times, with the third Fabulous Bill book, oh, that book went through editing hell. Well, you know what? I don't care because
Sure.
because we're reading and we're reviewing the finished product. One thing that one of my grad school professors said, and I've always taken it to heart, and it's the author is dead to you, meaning what the author intended doesn't matter to how your interpretation is. Think for yourself. Well, okay, maybe the author, Josh Reynolds didn't intend for the Fabulous Bill book to be the way it was, but it doesn't matter because this is what we have and we have to interpret what we have. Same with this. Oh, it went through editing hell. Things got cut. He didn't have the final say. I don't care. This is what we got and it's not good.
So Stephen King says that from the other, right, on writing. He talks about how he's like, look, once you publish a book, it's out there. You don't get to go and argue with every fan. You don't get to go and tell every fan, no. See, this is what happened here. Or no. You see, this got edited out. And I think a lot of, this is one of those books. I think you go into this book with whatever you keep in your backpack vis-a-vis the Alpha Legion.
That's
I
a good
think
way.
some people, again, and there's plenty of books like that. I fall into a lot of those books too, right? I 100% will admit that. If you go into a book just really liking a certain Legion and really wanting it to work, you're gonna make it work, right? I could point to at least 5 books off the top of my head where I've done that, right? I went in with nothing for this book, so I was cautiously optimistic because we really like Mike Brooks, and that's what's really killing me right now, is that I really like Mike Brooks as an author.
I came in with very high expectations because I like him as an author, and I really liked the Alpharius Primarch book, and I'm disappointed. Same. As an Alpha Legion fan, I guess I don't fall in what you were saying. Is you're like, if you like the Alpha Legion, you're gonna love the Alpha Legion the book and blah blah blah. And I'm kind of throwing a wrench in that because I really was enthusiastic. I really wanted to like this, and I couldn't. By part 2, part 1, if part 1 had stayed the course, I probably would have had a lot more favorable things to say. But about halfway through part 2, I was like, I don't even care what happens the rest of this book now.
I feel that. I really do feel that. This book, you and I were talking about it before, not to belabor the point, but you and I were talking about this a few days ago, and you were like, well, at least it's a fast read. And I was like, oh my God, it is not a fast read for me. Because I would read 3 chapters, and that's enough of that.
See, and I thought it was a very fast read.
It was a long one for me. I'm glad we read it this year. I know that we're trying to squeeze one more book in.
That's because it's a little book.
It's because it's a little bitty book.
And it's Christmassy. We have to get it in before Christmas.
We have to get the Christmas book in.
Yeah.
Dagabo's Demise. I legit hope that this continues to be a what's sort of looking for a tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Words, sentences, they ain't working today. Very excited for a Christmas tradition with these guys. One more book. One more.
It's 122,
y'all.
It's 123 pages. I mean, come on.
I think I can do that.
Right.
Very excited to read it. I think it should be a fun way to end the year, and then we have our book club awards for the year.
Yeah, so we're going to be having stuff every week in December. It's kind of crazy.
To end your year.
That's right.
I'm excited. Do you want to take us out, Carrie?
Yes, I think I will. Thank you. All right, so you have listened to the Warhammer 40k book club episode regarding Harrowmaster by Mike Brooks. Be sure to join us next time for Dagabo's Demise by Denny Flowers. Second book by Denny Flowers we're reading this year. New author. It's kind of fun. We are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and podcast on our website, WH40kbookclub.com. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those things to the vidcast on YouTube or the podcast on anywhere you get podcasts. Our site also has articles about our adventures in reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside the book club books. So please stay a while and read from a crag. And I am, despite my disappointment with this warband, I am still Alpharius, and they're drinking like my even Alpha Legion colored tea.
Have never been Alpharius, and I will continue to never be Alpharius.
Well, you might have to shave your head bald and.
Oh God, no!
Right.
Too vain. Too vain. Warhammer 40k has taught me how vain I really am.
I mean, you won't do Slanesh, you won't do Nurgle.
God, no.
You don't want to be made of mouths, so Tzeentch is out of the question.
No, I draw the line at tentacles and too many mouths and too many teeth.
Yeah. Glad to know that corn's always an option for you, though.
Yeah. But only if I don't have to shave my head. I have done it once. Never again.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Night.